Hey, welcome back to the Realm of History. First live review of 2023. So we're getting ready to talk a little bit of Renaissance and Reformation, chapter 17. This is going to be a tough chapter to settle in on the first quiz back after the break. Hoping that you're ready. I'm not sure about those results from the review game today. Look a little bit iffy there. So I want to make sure that we get a good session in. Hey, let me know that you're here tonight. Check in with me in the comments. Let me know. It's very important that I know that you're here. I've been seeing a big correlation with students that attend and good scores and students that miss not having such great scores, even though it is going to replay. I do want to welcome my newest sponsor. That's Grace Bake Shop at Instagram. You can DM Grace_Bake_Shop for all your good baked goods, a plethora of things there available for you. Also, if you'd like to be a sponsor, I love to support Realm Family Business. You know, current students, former students, anybody who's family of the realm of history would love to get you in there. It doesn't cost you anything. I just put it up there to support you and your endeavors. Okay, I'm really excited to be here. We're blessed to be able to be here tonight. I want to make sure that you get yourself ready for the quiz paper tomorrow. Let's go ahead and get into the live agenda tonight. So what we're going to take a look at here, I got some key advice for you right off the bat. We'll talk about some selected key terms, key figures, key places. We'll go through some short answer possibilities, not all of them, but just a few. Some AP advice, got a couple tips for you there. And then, of course, we'll culminate with some question and answer time and a bit of final advice as well. So key advice. Haven't been on here in a while with you, so want to make sure that you write things down from this session. Remember, the more you write it down, the more you master it. I want you to read your outline several times through tonight before you go to bed, tomorrow morning, seminar hour tomorrow, if that's fortuitous for you. Make sure that you read AMSCO. If you didn't read your AMSCO, you're probably in trouble at this point. You want to make sure that you're ready for that AP portion. And listen, don't just think small picture, think big picture, right? You want to make sure that you're getting ready for that big picture exam in May. That's what this class is all about. Number two, make sure you pray for the right things, right? Remember, there's so many more important things to focus on than just this quiz. You want to make sure that you're praying for your family. You want to say the prayer of gratitude. Thank the good Lord for all the blessings that you've been bestowed upon. Also, I think it's really important not to pray for success on this quiz or really success in your athletic endeavors, but more so just ask the good Lord for that guidance. You know, ask the good Lord to guide you, to keep you safe, to keep your family safe. I think those are the really important things that you need to focus on. Hey, number three, as always in the realm, be here now. Focus on the task at hand right now. Hey, I know the national championship game's on, right? The big final game of the year in college football. I'd love to watch it too, but hey, I love my job and I really care about my students. Hopefully you'll care about this quiz enough to be here now and be here now tomorrow. So focus in. Number four, make sure that you thank your parents, right? They do so much for you every single day. We just got out of the holidays, right? You probably thanked them all profusely during the holidays, but keep that going, right? Make sure you thank them for everything that you do for them and send a thank you for me, to be honest with you. I mean, we're really blessed at St. Mary's to have great kids, and a lot of that is due to the endeavors of your parents. Okay, finally, number five, want to make sure that you meet the challenge, right? We want to make sure that you're meeting the challenge tomorrow. It is going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. 36 questions on the content, another 7 on the AP. So you're going to have to work diligently. We want to push you under that pressure cooker, just like the AP exam is going to do in May. Remember, if you're not getting challenged, you're not getting better, right? If you're not getting challenged, you're not getting better. So make sure that you embrace the challenge, want the challenge, and meet the challenge. Okay. Next up, we're going to get right into the key terms, places, and figures. I've selected some. I left a few out. If I felt like we really hit it hard during the week in class, and I know that we covered it a lot, I'm probably going to leave that out. Now, if you still have a question about those, I will answer them, but I'm hoping that you have it mastered by this time. Okay, let's move it on down. The first term that I'm going to go over is secular, right? Secular is something that we've learned about throughout the year, so I could have left this one off. But secular means worldly. It's focused on non-religious factors. Got a spelling error in there too. Factors, right? That's a big one. And then also, it's concerned with the here and the now. Okay, so it's really focused on the key ideas, not so much of religious factors. Don't forget to check in with me. If you joined in late, I saw the number jump from about 60 to 80. So if you joined in late, go ahead and check in with me. Give me a shout out. Let me know that you're here. Second, realism. A lot of kids had questions about realism today. Well, when you're thinking about realism, it's really a painting style. It's also a sculpting style of the Renaissance. It was especially evident in the northern regions of the Renaissance, Flanders, England, northern France, okay? Utopia, a lot of questions about utopia. It's really simple, okay? The definition of a utopia is an ideal place. It also was, I think this is where the confusion's coming into play, it was also the title of Thomas More's book about a perfect society, in which he entitled it Utopia. On that note, let's talk about your boy Thomas More. Your boy Thomas More was a Christian humanist. Remember, the Christian humanists, they were Catholics, but they wanted to change to make the church better. So he wrote a book about his perfect or ideal society, which he called Utopia. The printing press. It's a machine, more or less, developed by Johann Gutenberg that enhanced the block printing process. Block printing or movable type was a Chinese invention, so we need to give credit where credit is due. But Johann Gutenberg enhanced that process. It increased the production of books, made them mass-produced, which meant they were lower in price. More people could afford them. So now more people had an incentive to learn how to read, which then had a big impact on education. More people garnered and wanted an education because of this. Next is just, Johann Gutenberg, or sometimes known as Johannes Gutenberg. He was the inventor of the printing press, 1453, in Mainz, Germany. John Knox is next. John Knox was the founder of the Presbyterian Church in Scotland. It's really a branch of the Calvinistic faith. So, what was the definition of the Presbyterians? Well, Presbyterians are a Protestant denomination that branched off of Calvinism. Pretty simple stuff. Speaking of Calvinism, let's go to predestination. Predestination is the idea that God knows all and has already decided who will go to heaven. This is something practiced by the Calvinists, okay? They believe that the good Lord has selected a few elect. Not everyone is going to heaven, but there are some people known as the elect that will be granted admission to heaven. This was all from John Calvin. Calvinism is a Protestant denomination founded by John Calvin. John Calvin, once again, I don't think I even need to pull him up on the screen, but he is the founder of Calvinism, ladies and gents. All right, making our way down through the Renaissance and the Reformation. Let's talk a little bit of Catholicism here with the Jesuits. The Jesuits are what are called an order of priests. An order of priests is like a group of priests that specialize in something. The Jesuits focused on education and missionary work. UAD Jesuit is a great school, very well known for its education. That will remind you that the Jesuits focused on education. What's missionary work? Missionary work is when you send priests out to try and convert people. During the Protestant Reformation, a lot of former Catholics became Protestant. So the Catholic Church needed to focus on going out to other areas to try and gain new converts. The Jesuits were put into the forefront on that. The founder of the Jesuits was Ignatius of Loyola. Ignatius of Loyola was the founder of the Jesuit order of priests, known as St. Ignatius today. Another Protestant denomination, the Anabaptists. The Anabaptists had a little different belief. They believed that only adults should be baptized, as they can then choose to be baptized. So I was baptized when I was a baby. I don't remember the process. Probably many of you were as well. My children were, right? So that solidifies that you're a Christian. However, what the Anabaptists believe is they're like, well, that person didn't really choose to be baptized. So we're going to baptize them when they're adults, when they can choose to actually decide, or I do want to be Christian, so on and so forth. So it's kind of like Catholic confirmation. When you confirm yourself in Catholicism, you're saying, yes, I do believe in the rites that I was baptized with and the faith that I am practicing. All right, the Renaissance. Yes, this is what the first two sections of the chapter were all about. The Renaissance is an explosion of art, writing, and also learning, right? And this was also known as a revival of art and learning, a rebirth, renacimiento, right? A rebirth, a revival of art and learning. It spanned from 1300 to 1600. That's the general bookend dates on the Renaissance. What? What do we got here? Oh, special news, breaking news. This is just in. Okay, the boys from 6th Hour were the clear winners in today's review game. 3 out of 5. Holy donkeys, congratulations. No 49% coin toss necessary. Congratulations to the 6th Hour boys. You can put +1 on your quiz paper tomorrow. Sign of strength. All right, that breaking news came in just now. Very interesting. Let's go into humanism next. Humanism is an intellectual movement that focused on human potential and achievement. So it's talking about, hey, what can humans achieve? What have humans achieved? So the subject of history is a really good and endorsed subject of the humanists, but other subjects would be like art, music, speech, the type of classes that you have in your humanities rotation. Next, Desiderius Erasmus. He was a Christian humanist. So he focused on what could people do to make religion better, okay? He taught that studying the Bible was the way. He said the Bible is the main authority. Next is the Peace of Augsburg. The Peace of Augsburg is a peace treaty. It ended a major war between Catholic and Protestant German princes. Basically, Charles V, the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, decides, hey, we're going to leave it up to the princes. We're going to stop the fighting. If you're a prince that's Protestant, your territory can practice Protestantism. If you're a prince that's Catholic, your territory can practice Catholicism. And that's basically what the Peace of Augsburg did. Next, key female, Catherine of Aragon. Catherine was Henry VIII's first wife. He wanted to divorce her so that he could marry a younger wife because she was in her 40s and he wants a male heir to the throne. So she's Catholic. She's also the aunt of Charles V, which caused a huge uproar when he tries to get the Pope to grant him an annulment. Mary was Henry VIII's oldest daughter. She became the queen, and when she was in power as the queen, it was short, but she did restore Protestantism. Remember, Henry VIII splits from the church over that annulment issue. He turns the English people into Protestant, Anglican, and Mary comes in and for a short time restores Protestantism. However, this is after her brother, Henry's oldest son, Edward, had died. Edward was Henry's son. He did finally have a son with his third wife, Jane Seymour, but she died in the birthing process. And during that process being tough, he was always very sick. And so he died at a very young age. He was like 15 or 16 years old. And when he died, it went to Mary. And then after Mary, it went to the famous queen who's on the cover of this thumbnail for the live review, Elizabeth, who we talked about and learned about this week. All right, next is the Act of Supremacy. The Act of Supremacy was an oath that Henry made all English people swear, which basically stated that he, Henry VIII, was the head of the church in England and not the Pope. And that church was the Protestant faith known as Anglican. Renaissance man, Renaissance woman, what is this? Well, these are very well-rounded individuals, masters of all areas of study. That's what we're talking about there with Renaissance men. All right, so what was Henry VIII seeking? He was seeking an annulment to his marriage from Catherine. So he goes to the Pope and he asks for this process. To annul something is to put an end or cancel it. So in this case, the Catholic Church, when they do grant an annulment, it basically, the understanding is that the marriage never existed. They erase it from history, basically, that it never existed, so on and so forth. So it's an official end or cancellation of a marriage. Okay, patrons, very important during the Renaissance. Patrons were supporters of artists, and they used their wealth to provide support for those artists. Okay, we're making our way. We've done a lot already. We've been on for 15 minutes. Now, I think we'll talk briefly about some short answer possibilities, ballers. Some short answer possibilities my family members of the realm. The first thing that I do want to talk about is studying the chart on page 491. One of the big questions in today's review game was, hey, can you name 6 Protestant denominations? So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to go to the textbook, and I'll show you exactly what I am talking about. Just 1 second here. All right, here we go. This is the key page that I really want you to focus on. This is page 491. I'm going to try to zoom in. Yeah, something like that. Check this out. Okay, so this tells you right here, all right, early on, there was just a Christian church. Everybody was Catholic. Then we had the Great Schism. The Great Schism divided up the Catholic Church into Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic. Okay, remember when we learned about the Byzantine Empire? Well, they practiced Eastern Orthodox Catholicism. Then the Protestant Reformation hits. Protestantism happens, right? So these are all these different faiths and practices that do not follow the authority of the Pope. So you have Lutheran, Anglican, branch offs of Anglican are Episcopalian, Baptist, Anabaptist, Methodist, Pentecostal. Then you have Calvinism. Branches of Calvinism are Presbyterian and Reformed. From Anglicanism, you could also go into Amish, Quaker, Mennonites, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's basically your ideology there. That's 491. Very important page to study, by the way. Yeah. Okay, we're back to the normal look. Next, there might be a short answer about that. So, or related questions to that chart. So just want to make sure that you study that chart. Now, what factors led to Italy becoming the birthplace of the Renaissance? Well, number one, there's a very wealthy merchant class in Italy at the time. That meant they were going to be able to buy Renaissance art. Okay, so that's one factor. Thriving cities were centers or areas of big time exchange, right? So when you take a look at that big time exchange, those are some of the key things that you really want to have an understanding of. The exchange, the trade, the cultural diffusion, all driving factors of the Renaissance. Also, remember that the Renaissance is a rebirth. It's going back to the ancient ways of the Greeks and the Romans. And so the proximity or close geographic nature of Italy to ancient Rome and also ancient Greece sort of gives it a pretty big advantage. Next, why does the Renaissance spread north? There's a couple factors there. It starts in Italy, right? But there was a war in southern Italy that then spread to northern Italy. A lot of your artists leave Italy and they move to areas of the north, northern Europe, Flanders, France, England. Then kings and queens were practicing as patrons of the arts. They were buying art. They were having portraits of themselves drawn. So that brought a lot of the artists north. And then population growth. The population in the north was decimated by the bubonic plague. That's going to start to rebuild during its spread northward. So those are some factors there. The ever sought after AP tips and AP info. So here, I'm going to give you some really important tips. I'm not going to tell you everything that you need to know because I do want to see how you can perform on this first AP assessment of the year. But number one thing that you're going to need to focus on, Martin Luther. AMSCO starts right into Luther, starts right into the Protestant Reformation. So that is key. Second, understanding Luther and his conflict with Pope Leo X, right? Talked about this, the going back and forth, the asking Luther to recant or take back his statements, him getting excommunicated by the Pope. That's really what you want to focus in on there. Then, what are the after effects? The results of the Protestant Reformation. What did the Catholics do? After the Reformation happens, they have to make some changes, right? So the Counter-Reformation or the Catholic Reformation is something to focus on as well. All right, we've been going for 20 minutes, and now it is definitely time for some question and answer session. All right, question and answer session. So I am going to go to the comments here. Yes, I see a lot of key ballers on. I appreciate that. I'm going all the way to the top just to make sure I didn't miss anything. A lot of ballers and ballerinas checking in. Give me just a second here until I get to some questions. Of course, at this time, feel free to type in any questions. A lot of ballers in this meeting tonight. I appreciate that. Love my students. I love my job, and definitely love my students. I love doing this. Malik gave me a sign of weakness. I see you. Here we go. Nina, will we have to know the Greek translation of utopia? Couldn't hurt. Okay, let me explain. The Greek translation of utopia is no place. Okay? So if you think about utopia being an ideal place, well, is there really an ideal place in the world? Is there a perfect place in the world? Most likely not. There really aren't any true paradises, okay? Maybe Disney World, but you got to wait in long lines. A lot of people don't like that. So one of the things that you want to make sure that you understand is the Greek translation of utopia means no place. Master Ozog. Yes, famous Realm family member. I hope you had a great break as well. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that. Juniors, former students checking in. I love it. I see you guys in here. Okay. I see everybody. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Nina again. Sign of Strength by Nina. Do we need to know members of the Medici family by name? I put two on the slideshow today. I put Lorenzo de' Medici, Cosimo de' Medici. Those are the two names that you would need to know if you want to be detailed and get really ready. Could help you on a short answer, right? Could definitely help you on the AP test at the end of the year. So I strongly suggest that you know those. I mentioned 491. I would also say 488. 488 is a really good one. And then the page number is blanking me, but the first page of the chapter, which is a map, it's a map about what's going on in 1500 in Europe. I think that one is also a really important page to focus on. Yes, very good questions right off the bat. I love it. Henry VIII was famous king of England. I'll go through the whole story. So he's the king of England, and he's married to a woman from Spain named Catherine of Aragon. All right. She's very Catholic. He's very Catholic. Okay. Devout Catholics. But he has a daughter with Catherine. That's Mary. Unfortunately, the true succession of the throne is to pass it down to a son. So he wants to have a son. By this time, his wife is in her 40s, Catherine. So he's already been having an affair with a younger woman named Anne Boleyn behind her back. And he wants to get a divorce from Catherine to marry his younger mistress, Anne Boleyn. So he goes to the Pope and he asks the Pope to grant him an annulment. The Pope will not do that. So Henry's like, well, all right, fine, whatever. I'll just flex my muscles. I'll just separate from the Catholic Church. I'll make everybody in England swear to this oath called the Act of Supremacy that I'm now the head of the church in England, and we don't need the Catholic Church. So he forms the Anglican Church in doing so, and that's his big role in this chapter. What is the selling of indulgences or sale of indulgences? To make this one short for you, is basically where back in this time, you'd go to confession, okay? And when you go to confession, the priest usually gives you something called a penance, right? Some type of penalty that you have to fulfill. Like the priest says, all right, you got to do 40 Hail Marys and 10 Our Fathers, whatever it may be. He might have some other things. In this time, you could pay the priest money, and he would give you a certificate, basically, that says the Catholic Church absolves you from your penalty. So you had to go to confession, but you didn't have to pay the penalty if you paid a certain amount of money. This angered a lot of people, including Martin Luther, which definitely was a catalyst for the Protestant Reformation. Nina D, for the Renaissance men, would we have to list any of their artistic or scientific works? Definitely couldn't hurt to know that. Like I went through the slideshow, I said, Leonardo, Mona Lisa, we had Michelangelo, the Sistine Chapel, Raphael, School of Athens, Donatello, the Statue of David. So those are some key things that you might want to know. Leonardo, I think, is a little bit more intricate because, he had a lot of other avenues that he focused on. So, yeah, those scientific works that he achieved couldn't hurt. Okay, Master Jacob, the cause of the Catholic Reformation was the Protestant Reformation. So the fact that the Protestant Reformation happened kind of opened up some people's eyes to what are some of the things like selling of indulgences that weren't going really well for the church. And so I think that that is a direct cause of the Catholic Reformation. Christian, what's a good definition for Desiderius Erasmus? Erasmus was a Christian humanist. He believed that studying the Bible had a greater authority than did listening to church officials or church rules and laws. He said, you should really be a Christian of the heart, not one that focuses on Catholic ceremonies. That was his viewpoint. Mr. Janke. Okay. I don't know who that would be. Maybe. What is the major criticism of the church? Well, the criticisms of the church, there were a lot of them. One pointed at the Pope's leadership, getting involved in being a patron of the arts. They argued, critics argued that the popes were getting involved in foreign wars. They argued that the lower clergy were not very well educated and they were getting involved in things that were more secular in nature than they were religious. The selling of indulgences was a huge factor there too, that we just talked about. Yeah, something like that there, Byler. Definitely agree. Well, I never like to memorize anything. I think getting the key concept, but with the Ninja Turtles, if you know their names, right? If you know the names of the turtles, they are all named after the key Renaissance men. So that's where the relationship is there. This is chapter 22, my man. Chapter 22. No, chapter 25, Industrial Revolution. Chapter 25. So we're not there yet, man. I mean, memorize, once again, I don't like the word memorize, Noah, but understanding what they did achieve, right? And it's the four key figures: Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo. Those are the ones you really need to focus on. Yes, Malik, you need to know when the cartoon began, when the movie came out with Vanilla Ice. That's Turtles 2. When the first one came out with Casey Jones in it, with April O'Neil. You need to know when the first Ninja Turtle action figure was released. Yeah, something like that. Hudson, do we need to know in-depth definitions of the four? Well, I think you don't. I think I'm getting messages about Mr. Janke. I don't know. I got to figure out who this guy is. I got to think. I'm busy right now, but Hudson, I think that the four Renaissance men, you're talking about Leonardo, Michelangelo, Donatello, and Raphael. Yes, you need to know their names for one question, and then you need to know, the things that they did, because I told you guys to research them. So I'm not going to go over all their achievements, but in the textbook and based on your research, you should have a good understanding there. So you need to know both. Elena says, for the Protestant denominations, do we need to just list them Or do we need to know specific information? Lutheran, Presbyterian, Calvinism, Anabaptist, you got to kind of know specifics, right? The others, unless it was really talked about in the notes or the reading, the others you would just know the name, okay? How did the Medici family get their position of power? Basically, starting off as a wool producing company, they gained some wealth. Then they used that wealth to become loan sharks. So they were loaning out money to people, collecting interest on it, even though that was a sin in the church called usury. And then taking the money that they matriculated there and creating powerful banks throughout all of Europe. Come on, Malik, you know the answer. I can't stand Andrew Tate. The guy's a misogynist, and I don't support him. That's what I'm going to say there. Come on, try and trap me. Machiavellian ethics are basically Machiavelli taught rulers to essentially focus on not what's morally right, but what's politically effective. And he was like, hey, if you have to lie, cheat, steal, murder, whatever it takes to be an effective ruler, then of course do so. Yes, Master Luca. I mean, when you think about the Renaissance, the secularism of the Renaissance definitely led into the Reformation, right? So Martin Luther, seeing the secularism of certain members here and there, secular ideas, people focusing on things that weren't so religious, definitely led to changes in the church eventually. Yes. Very bright young man. Cameron, what else well, you definitely want to know she was Queen of England, that she was Henry VIII's daughter. Her mother was Anne Boleyn, who started off as Henry VIII's mistress and then eventually was his second wife. Yeah, that's it for this chapter. We're going to get back to her in later chapters, though, and you'll need to know a little bit more. But for now, I think that should do it. You probably won't need to list the branches, Ashley K. More so just you might have to list Protestant denominations. The two that you might want to know that branched are Calvinism and Presbyterian. We talked a lot about the connections there. Metacognition is always applicable. Okay, Malik, you should always be practicing metacognition, because if you're thinking about how you're thinking, you're evaluating your thoughts. So as you study, you need to be metacognitively thinking about, why am I thinking about this? How does it relate to the term, right? So as you're thinking about the term, you should be thinking about how it relates. And as you're thinking about how it relates, you should be thinking about examples to relate it back to the term. If you can do that, practicing metacognition, or really evaluating, thinking about how you think while you're thinking about what you're thinking about, that is metacognition. Yes. So that is always, always a fair thing to utilize. Key Protestant reformers. All right. I'll do my best here. Martin Luther, number one. Desiderius Erasmus, Thomas More, John Calvin, John Knox, Ulrich Zwingli, Jan Hus, John Wycliffe, That'd be my list. Just the idea, Kira, that it set forth his ideal society, which kind of was absent of greed and other things like that, corruption, people focusing on religion, so on and so forth. But really, you just need to know that that's his book, and it was about an ideal society. That should be about it for this quiz. I'm trying to skip over these comments that are not practicing metacognition. I've missed a couple because of that, but I'm doing my best. Do we need to know that John Calvin wrote the Institute of Christian Religion, and if so, what is stated? No. You don't have to get that detailed about Calvin Patterson. You just need to know about his ideas of predestination, and also that the Calvinistic state in which he put into play in Geneva was very strict. You couldn't wear bright colors like orange or yellow. You couldn't dance in public. You couldn't do anything that was called merrymaking. Like, you couldn't have fun, really. It was really strict. You're just supposed to worship God, trust God, pray, and that's pretty much it. Well, the Reformation begins in 1521 with Martin Luther, Bryn, and it's really the Reformation is the reformation of the church, the Christian church, and it splits off into different Protestant denominations, or it leads into the foundation of Christian churches that do not follow the Pope's authority. So it led into Christian churches that weren't Catholic. That's the Reformation. Yeah, Sarah. So Council of Trent, right? Pope Paul III, Pope Paul IV. I think those are really good individual figures, and what they did, right? How they enforced the denotations of the Council of Trent, how they tried to get rid of the selling of indulgences, try to enforce church rules about priests getting married, and so on and so forth. So I think that those are really influential figures to know how that led to the general picture, right, of trying to reform the Catholic Church, how they started to focus on missionary work, so on and so forth. Their support of Ignatius of Loyola with the foundation of the Jesuit order. That's another key factor that these guys played a part in. Malik, please stop, dude. Stop. Okay? Just stop. The religious leader that Martin Luther saw selling the indulgences was Johann Friar, and he was doing this in Wittenberg. Yes, Lutheranism, Calvinism and its branches, and Anglicanism and its branches. That's correct. Okay, I think I've answered all the questions for now. Are there any other questions? I will stay on and answer any other questions that come in. While I'm waiting for questions to pop in, I would encourage all of you to read your notes carefully. I think that's a really important factor. Reading the notes, I think, is the most important thing. Use your review sheet. Quiz yourself off of the review sheet, okay? And you can kind of go from there. But yeah, that's my biggest point of advice. If you are unsure about unit and topic 3.3, watching Heimler couldn't hurt. On the AP Classroom, I did open up the video for 3.3, so you could always watch that if you want a little bit of extra research, so on and so forth. Blaming others is a lack of metacognition. That's a sign of weakness. I want you to be better. I want you to take responsibility. Taking responsibility is a sign of strength. Luther was taken in by a guy named Prince Frederick of Saxony. Saxony is a region in the north, and he was hid out in a castle by Prince Frederick, and it was then that he basically translated the Bible into German from Latin. Ooh, Pierre coming hard with the Luther's three teachings. Number one, Luther taught that faith alone was all that you needed for salvation. Number two, he taught that the teachings of the church should be clearly based on the words of the Bible. He basically said that the Pope and the Catholic Church did not have as much authority as the Bible. And then third, he taught that all people under the faith were equal, and so you really didn't need a priest to interpret the Bible for you anyway. Those were his three main teachings. What's up with the second hour, guys? Seriously, I don't know, man. I don't study that stuff. Let's keep it on chapter 17. PB Investments. That's your boy. All right. Nina, you're not going to have to know that one. I wouldn't stress out about it. It is in the notes, but it's really not going to be something that I would think you need to focus on. Lucas Desiderius Erasmus, Christian humanist. Well, practice metacognition. You have to keep focusing yourself. You got to refocus. You should quiz yourself after every term. You take your terms, you have them on the left side of your thing. You have your blank review sheet. Then you have your answers on your notebook paper. You go through each term and see if you can answer it. Like, make it a game. Like, see how many terms, concepts, figures you can answer from your mind without looking at your responses. Write down, I got, however, let's say there's 30. I got 20. Let me do round two. Let's see if I can get to 25, right? Make it a game. If you're having trouble focusing, sometimes make it competitive. Like, if you have some friends that might be honest in that second hour, I don't know how many of them are there that are honest, but maybe you guys all say, all right, we're going to all quiz ourselves and see how many we could get right. Right. And then make it a competition, but you just got to be honest to make it for real. Thank you, Luca. I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Family, your family. Yeah. I mean, those were the review game questions, Lucas. I'm not going to go over those on here. You're always free to write them down if you want. This is a tough one for me to answer because, I mean, really everything's fair game, KC. Anything that's in the reading, anything that's in the notes, anything that's in the AMSCO, you really need to be responsible for. So I do the review sheet to try and pare it down, but the review sheet's not the end all be all. There probably will be some things on the quiz that won't be on the review sheet. Okay. So, 80% of my questions come directly from the notes, but 20% I gather from the reading. I really don't think you guys do your reading well enough. It's one of my biggest worries. And that's usually why people get questions wrong. I mean, the kids who do the reading, like I'm telling you right now, let me give you a little hint. Like the kids who are raising their hand and answering questions during the lessons, there's usually like 3 or 4 per class period. Those are the people who do really well in the quizzes. I've been talking about doing the reading all year. That's something that we got to get better at. But yeah, anything that's in the reading is fair game. All right, it's getting a little goofy in the comments here. So, I'm not going to waste my time on that stuff. I'm going to say it's been 45 minutes. I think that's ample review time. So if you have any further questions or comments, I'll stay on for a minute or so. I just want to say thank you to you guys. I'm losing my voice a little bit. That was a lot of terms and a lot of questions. But yeah, I really appreciate all of you for coming on. Even the guys who are making the funny comments, I I appreciate you, and I love all of my students. And make sure you say thank you to your parents. Study up tonight. And of course, if you ever have any questions, you can always feel free to message me by email or whatever. I'll do my best to help you out. Okay, I know who Ethan J is now. I got a message, so now I know. I'm sorry. I should have known that. Yeah, Mr. Jakey, that makes sense. Okay. Um, I'm getting hit up pretty bad about not knowing who Mr. Janky is. I don't, I didn't really think about that. But all right, hey, if there's no further questions or comments or anything like that, I want to say thank you to you guys and have a blessed night. Enjoy. Peace.